The 2025 competitive Pokemon TCG season started off with a bang, thanks to 3 major tournaments taking place, and the biggest surprise is Regidragovister didn't win in any of them. Instead, Charizard with Pokestop, Palkia with Noctowl, and Gardevoir took down Birmingham, Rio de Janeiro, and San Antonio respectively. However, Prismatic Evolutions is here now, and while we've all heard and seen about the horror stories surrounding scalping and prizes, us competitive players are really only concerned about 2 cards, Budew and Regigigas. Really, it's mostly the first one, Budew. The Itchy Pollen attack can be so devastating in the early game, and the card is so easily techable into any deck that the whole format is basically warping around it at this point. Either you play a deck that uses it to slow down the game whilst you set up behind it, or you adapt your deck as necessary to adapt to it and try to make sure you're not too affected by not being able to play item cards. In today's video, we will talk about what I perceive will be the best decks heading into a tournament. And as is tradition since I started making these videos, it is likely a deck I put in tier 4 will end up winning the first major tournament where Budew is legal, the Merida Regional Championship in Mexico. Which, by the way, I am very excited about since I have not played a major tournament in my own country since 2018. This tournament will surely lead to changes in positioning of some of these decks, but this is my prediction based on what I've seen from my own testing, the online tournaments, the Japanese city leagues, and of course the results from the Osaka Champions League back in December. Tier 4 is a bit of a mashup of decks that are very affected by Budew, or I haven't been very impressed by and don't have high expectations for those decks. This heavily item reliant deck seems to always be a sleeper pick. Even though denying abilities with initialization is almost always going to be a powerful strategy, this deck struggles badly against one of the best decks heading into this new metagame, Dragapult. Dragapult not only now slows down any item-based disruption with Budew, such as Crushing Hammer or Pokemon Catcher, but it has Dracloak's Recon Directive to keep finding resources, and you at best 3-hit KO a fully established Dragapult, whilst they can 2-hit KO the first Iron Thorns and then 1-hit KO the rest thanks to the damage spread from Phantom Dive. I don't think any deck that has a bad Dragapult matchup right now can really succeed in this new metagame. Roaring Moon EX is ranked low as well due to the heavy reliance of item cards to really pop off. Of course the Budew item lock won't last the whole game, but this deck relies on speed, and building a big advantage early on to where it's hard for an opponent to keep up. But once again, a bad Dragapult matchup combined with the item reliance, combined with a bad Gardevoir matchup as well that also uses Budew, and it's a recipe for disaster for this deck at the moment. Cluff is a very peculiar deck that instills the fear of getting donked into everyone that played against it. But it is very unreliable as the game advances and really needs to build a big advantage early on to earn a win. It can be cute and use Budew with Binding Mochi as a way to put a lot more pressure with the item lock thanks to the extra damage from it, Poison, and even Radiance Neasler. But after that, it struggles to get past the 320 HP of Dragapult combined with the pressure onto the bench from Phantom Dive, and a historically bad Gardevoir matchup that likely gets worse every time you go first, so I don't have a lot of hope for this deck in the upcoming metagame. Giratina V-Star is a deck that had a bit of a resurgence initially in Japan when Budew came out, and has seen a teeny bit of success online too. The 280 damage cap seems lackluster in a metagame dominated by Pokemon with 300 HP or more. The Jet Energy is what really makes this deck shine, as it's less reliant on items than the usual Lost Box, and it's slower overall and doesn't mind using turns to use a PC King to build the Lost Zone while under Budew lock. Despite Star Requiem allowing you to bypass the damage cap, it can only be done once, and afterwards you will really struggle to keep up against the 300 HP Archaludons that can heal, 320 HP Dragapults that are threatening multiple KOs, and the 310 HP Gardevoir EXs throwing damage everywhere with double Monkey Dury. Ancient Box was all the rage after the Osaka Champions League, since it got all the way to second place. While it has a lot of synergy and strength within the cards, making Vengeance Fletching a formidable attack, by the time you get enough ancient cards in the discard, you might be a bit too far behind to keep up and trade against some of the higher HP Pokemon of the format. With Dragapult and Lugia at the top, as well as Gardevoir being a deceptively hard matchup, I don't have high hopes for this deck at all. Don't forget that you can watch videos 24 hours earlier if you become a channel member by following the link in the description below. This kind of support helps me continue to create content like this, so please consider becoming a channel member if you enjoy the content. Then we have Tier 3, which is the tier of the most directly affected decks by Budew's release, as they are all heavily item reliant decks that will now struggle to do their main party trick early on due to Itchy Pollen. Snorlax is one of the decks that is majorly impacted by Budew due to its reliance on items such as Counter Catcher for disruption and Pokegear and Nestle for consistency. Snorlax is also affected by the rise of particularly bad matchups like Lugia V-Star and Archaludon EX, while Gardevoir EX also remains a very tough one, especially now with 2 Professor Turos becoming more standard. With multiple bad matchups against top decks, even though it still has plenty of good ones around, Snorlax's time of hogging active Pokemon a little too hard might be over. Raging Bolt EX is another heavy item reliant deck that relies on aggression and building such a strong lead since the start of the game, but Budew now makes that awkward by stopping key cards like Energy Retrieval, Nest Ball and Earthen Vessel, which can lead to missed attacks, easing off the pressure on the opponent and letting them catch up. This is especially true for decks like Dragapult EX, which enjoy the extra time to set up multiple Dragapult. And Gardevoir's meteoric rise to top only makes things worse for this deck, as it is one of its worst matchups. Sure, you can still play the deck, but for now, I think it will remain dormant in the competitive scene until after rotation takes place. Goldengo EX is in a similar spot to Raging Bolt EX, where a well-timed Budew could prevent any initial burst of damage to threaten high damage potential by blocking Energy Surge Pro or Earthen Vessel, whilst potentially locking the deck out of attacks for the rest of the game if it doesn't take good care of the actual energy it does play, as it won't be able to recover all the ones used in prior turns without access to superior energy retrieval. With that, and the high HP of Dragapult EX at the top, as well as the 1-hit KOs from Gardevoir, this deck has struggled to keep up even before Budew existed. Regidrago V-Star seems to be extremely allergic to Budew's Ichipollen, and with good reason. This deck was broken in the previous format with a wide variety of attacking options and the amazing supporting cast, as well as setting up very reliably thanks to powerful items like Energy Switch and getting the right energy and Pokemon in the discard pile with Ultra Roll or Earthen Vessel. None of these are available against an early Budew, so even if you had a decent turn 1 and were able to get an energy switch off from Ogerpon to Regidrago and are almost ready to attack, even finding one of your Regidrago V-Star might be difficult the following turn under an Ichipollen item lock. Granted, I might be wrong about this and the deck may still be a tier 2 deck, but I have not been impressed by it in this new metagame so far. Lost Box was never really able to live up to the hype once Pikachu EX got added to it. And with its heavy item reliance on being able to switch out multiple times with Switch Card or Switch, power up through Mirage Gate, and recover lost resources with Super Rod, an early or mid game Ichipollen will surely slow down the deck and prevent any sort of pressure the deck could have applied. Even getting 10 damage on your Pikachu EX after it took a big KO means you can't heal off or re-power up since you can't play Switch Card or Mirage Gate anymore, and therefore it becomes a liability the turn after. And now we move on to tier 2. The decks in this tier are able to withstand the Ichipollen a little bit more and don't completely fall apart like most decks in the tiers below. However, they are impacted in some way and also have 1 or 2 tough matchups with the tier 1 decks. Charizard EX used to rely heavily on an explosive start by setting up both Charizard EX and Pidgeot EX on turn 2 with multiple rare candy. Budew now prevents that and forces the deck to adapt by including Pidgeotto, extra Charmeleon, and even a switch of Ace-Spec into Grand Tree. Despite this, the deck is still viable and a contender due to how strong the combination is, and how, if your opponent doesn't get a Budew active on their first turn, you can still do this turn to play because you won't be item locked. Miraidon EX is not severely affected by the presence of Budew, as it can manage its setup and apply pressure with a single turn of item cards, especially with Ampu very much against some of the slower decks like Dragapult or Gardevoir. With those two at the very top, alongside Lugia, that's a recipe for success for Miraidon in theory. Getting that extra prize on the poor Budew or any other single prizer is all the difference, and sure, you won't be able to play any further electric generator as long as Budew does its thing, but it shouldn't be for more than a turn, and then you're free to play them afterwards as you will not find yourself under item lock the whole game. Palkia V-Star combined with Noctowl came back in full force at the end of the Surging Sparks metagame, dominating tournaments in 3 different regions. However, I have more hope of the Dusknoir version succeeding in the upcoming metagame due to Budew. It can slow down evolution with Ichipollen, and even potentially finding Manaphy at all, which in turn makes Radiant Greninja even more threatening to decks like Dragapult EX or Gardevoir EX, and when combined with a Curse Blast from Dusknoir, you can do huge board wipes on opponents that can do very little to prepare for. Ceruledge EX is a deck that finally becomes good, mostly because a lot of others like Regidrago become worse due to Budew. This deck has a linear game plan for the most part, unless it plays Palkia V-Star to open up that and Radiant Greninja as potential attacking threats. However, it's very good at ramping up the damage output to 1 KO even the higher HP Pokemon like Dragapult EX and Gardevoir EX. With a linear strategy and no over-reliance on item cards, this deck is poised to finally have some good showings at the top. Archalon EX became a lot more popular after it won the Osaka Champions League in the only Budew allowed major tournament so far. This propelled more people to use it and led to a bit more success after that event, but it still didn't get a fantastic result as major threats like Raging Bolt and Charizard remained popular. However, just like Zero EX, it is time for this deck to shine at the top tables and really show what it's made of with its tanky strategy that can shift gears into heavy aggression by powering up a Dialga V-Star out of the blue and using Star Kronos for an extra turn. And now for Tier 1. We have the 3 decks that are fully embracing the new Budew changes, either by playing the card itself or being unfazed by it and just vibing and enjoying the slower paced metagame. Lugia V-Star seems like it will fly high one final time before it flies out of the format with the rotation in April. Lugia has always been known for being a powerful but unreliable deck due to the early game inconsistencies of trying to set up by discarding 2 Archeops, but in a slower format thanks to Budew, Lugia feels a bit less pressure from decks like Dragapult or Gardevoir in the early game and can sometimes have an extra turn to set up. To add on to this, Lugia V has a perfect attack to use when under item lock, Read the Wind, which allows you to see more cards and get an Archeops in the discard pile even if you can't play Ultra Ball due to Budew. The deck has an amazing array of attackers that now includes the new Regigigas 2, which is the perfect answer to the rise of Dragapult as well as improving the matchup against any stray Charizard you might run into. Fresh off a win in San Antonio from the Gardevoir Master of the Universe Henry Chow, Gardevoir had already positioned itself as a top tier archetype, and if Gardevoir does one thing, is it will thrive when little pressure is applied to it. That's why, in a slower paced Budew format, even if the deck isn't playing a copy of it most of the time, Gardevoir is poised to succeed even more. Gardevoir's downfall always comes in the early game from quick pressure from an opponent, but every passing turn where the deck is able to stabilize without being too far behind just makes the deck stronger. If you're clearly not being taken down, then you draw through your whole deck with a refinement and quickly take down anything in front with the combination of Drifloon and Screamtail, as well as Gardevoir EX as a formidable attacker thanks to Monkey Dory's Adrena Brain. Dragapult EX has been living up to the hype with the multiple variants doing very well at Osaka Champions Leagues, City Leagues and online tournaments. Budew allows the deck to have that 1 or 2 extra turns to set up before it gets pressured, and now getting a Dragapult up and running before you're too far behind is easy thanks to the extra help from Recon Directive even when under an opponent's Budew lock as well. The version with Dusknoir has been the most successful so far, but both Iron Thorns or Pidgeot remain viable partners for this powerful card. While there is still debate on whether you want Luminion or Klefki or how many Budew in the deck, one thing is for certain. This deck will be one of the most powerful and one of the most popular for the next set of major events leading into and after EUIC. And so, this covers what I think will be affected now that Budew is legal for play at major tournaments. Mexico is having its first regional championship since 2018, taking place in Merida, and many of the world's best players will be in attendance along with plenty of local players who will be experiencing such an event for the first time. This tournament will pave the way for the Puerto Rico special event the next weekend, and finally leading into EUIC with the highest level of competition possible. As always, I will continue to reevaluate and adjust my expectations and opinions as we have more results to see if I might have overestimated or underestimated some decks. I hope this video has been useful for you, and I hope the 2025 season has you excited for all the Pokemon action. Make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned to this channel for everything Pokemon TCG related, as 2025 promises to have even more exciting moments with brand new and powerful cards coming out in the new Journey Together TCG set, and rotation taking place very soon. For now, I'd love to hear what you think will do well at the upcoming events, and if there are any surprises to be seen this weekend. Thanks for watching, and until next time. If you want to support the channel, you can use code tablemon to get 5% off at Potan Store for your online codes, 10% off for your sealed product at Flipside Gaming, and 10% off on your aluminum accessories at TC Evolutions. Or if you're looking to buy singles or sleeves, you can fill up your cart and close the tab, then click on the affiliate link in the description and check out. That way you can support the channel over at TCG Player, Card Market, and Dragon Shield. ¿Eres de México y necesitas cartas de Pokémon? Busca Hyperbeam Cards en Facebook e Instagram. Y si estás en Tijuana, búscalos en el local C27 en el Centro Comercial Otay.